Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Banker D show. My name is Dave deSousa with Primary Residential, coming to you live from Glendale, California. Today, I have a guest of mine who I've known for many years. Let me please introduce you with great pleasure to Ms. Jenna Macari. She is a realtor that I have known for many years. It has been my pleasure to work with her for many years with many, many different clients that we've helped. So without further ado, I hand it over to you, Jenna.
Hello, thanks for having me, Dave. So glad to be doing this with you. Dave, you, as you know, are my go-to lender. We can't insist that our clients work with any particular vendor of any sort, but I always give them a few options and let them know that if it can be done, Dave will do it. So I always
Thank you, Jenna.
appreciate you greatly. Absolutely, yeah. Well, and you're really good with first-time buyers who need a lot of explanation, a lot of hand-holding, and as well as investors and really seasoned buyers. So it's you're a good team member to have.
Well, and on that note, I'll say that, the relationship between a realtor and a lender and how they work together, especially in competitive markets, it's critical. And I'm very grateful for, like some others, especially the relationship that we have where we know how we work. I know what makes you special, but maybe you can share that with our viewers.
Oh, well, thanks. It's always good to feel special. I started in the business in 2000, assisting a couple of really busy realtors before, the boom before the bust. And the cool thing about it was I've always been a great lover of architecture and design. In college, my art history classes were always my favorite. And so this firm that I worked with when I assisted these two realtors, they were it was a firm that specialized in architecture and historical homes. So it was not neighborhood specific. So it was a really great way to cut my teeth in the business because it was not, okay, we just work Venice or we just work Santa Monica or we just work Mount Washington. It was, where's the Neutra? Where's the Schindler? Where's the gorgeous historical Spanish house that needs to be refurbished and brought back to its grandeur? So that was very exciting for me. And I loved that it was it was such a wide breadth of the city. I have literally helped buyers and sellers from Malibu down to Westchester, sometimes a little bit of South Bay, Santa Monica to Pasadena, and like everywhere between. So when people ask me, "So, what neighborhood do? Where do you work?" always tell them very honestly, like that's my history, and I feel really comfortable in so many different neighborhoods.
Recently, we had a client that we talked about, wasn't it in the Playa area?
Yeah, we have a client in the Playa area that, yeah, they have a house in Culver City. They're looking to possibly expand their portfolio. We worked with clients in Sierra Madre. Oh, and there's a good story there. When we were in escrow with this lovely couple, really cool historic house on this little walk street, they
The only
actually.
walk street I've ever done in my 33 and a half year career.
Really? Yeah, that was a little complicated, but we got it done. But it was, Sierra Madre, it's at the foothills of the mountains. It's beautiful. There's a lot of, natural activity and critters happening there. And during the escrow process, before we closed, the seller reached out and said, "I need to get you a new screen door. It's my fault. I left honey and peanut butter on the counter and a bear came in." So it's like, oh, yeah, yeah. But it did not dissuade them. They were like, "Okay, we're there for the coyotes and the bears and, lions and tigers, oh my," all the stuff. So, of course, coyotes are everywhere, mountain lions, like but yeah, we've done a lot of work in places that sometimes pose a challenge, especially with fire insurance, homeowners insurance in general. But we work through it. It's really about anticipating. I mean, that's the thing that I've learned. I became licensed on my own in 2004, so I've been at this for 21 years now, and there are so many things that you don't know are going to be part of a process in selling or buying until you have the experience to anticipate. You know, when I go to a property with a client and I see that there's a little downslope in the property, we better get a drainage expert in there to make sure that everything is locked up tight. So when we have a torrential rain pour like we are having right now with this atmospheric river, then you are not going to have all of your keepsakes in your garage underwater. So it's, you know, there are things that both in just the logistics, the lay of the land, things to look for in a house that can be problematic if not addressed early on. Um, and just things with the negotiation process and lending especially, getting all of your ducks in a row, because if anything slows down a process, it can be if the loan hits a hiccup. So and you are really excellent, of course, in premeditating
We
all of
try,
those
we
things.
try. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
What thoughts, messages might you share with either people who have or haven't worked with you, and from a seller and a buyer perspective, which may be different, that what you might bring to the table, understanding that the relationship between a client and a realtor is somewhat different than the relationship I might have with them, right? Mine is very, very black and white. It's numbers, it's ratios, it's formula, it's data analysis. It's very it's very objective. Yours can be much more subjective, where there's emotions. It's a different kind of relationship. What can you speak to about what you might be able to bring to the table for people watching that either have or haven't worked with you, and from a buyer or seller perspective, that I know sets you apart, but maybe you could present to them?
For sure. Well, it is emotional, and it is, you know, most of the time when we make a move, it's because of a life event, right? It's because our family is expanding or
Contracting.
or contracting. Maybe it's you know, kids are off to college and people want to downsize. It can be it can be a death in the family. It can be marriage, it
Maybe a
can be divorce.
job relocation.
Job relocation, opportunities to be closer to family, or, you know, all kinds of different reasons. And so I think that it really requires um, very good listening skills on both the selling and the buying side. Like, what are the goals of the client? That's most important. I think that I have run into a lot of my colleagues in the business who are gangbuster, go-getter, you know, full steam ahead, and that while that's important for us to be really, um, you know, forward moving for our clients is the key. Because if it's just about your business and about increasing your bottom line, you are doing it wrong, in my opinion. If you're taking a listing for a seller and you are not intelligently and delicately sometimes guiding them to what is an appropriate price and strategy, and you are taking the listing at a high price just to get the listing. I see a lot of realtors doing that, especially in this market, and
Mhm,
then
mhm.
you're looking at a price reduction. A price adjustment is the language that's a little more palatable. But, you know, if you do it right, if you in any market, if you're pricing at market value or a hair below, you are going to get more people through the door, and you are more likely to be in a competitive selling situation. If you are pricing too high, or an aspirational price, as we sometimes call it, you could be setting yourself up for being on the market for a long time. Like, the average days on market right now across Los Angeles are quite high. I mean, comparatively to what we've had in the past. So if the average days on market right now are somewhere between like 90 and 114 days, it's going to be a little bit lengthier process than when things were flying off the shelves in 2 weeks and multiple offers. Even a colleague of mine was saying that they're seeing multiple offers, but not, but still sometimes things are selling under list price.
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
multiples.
Well,
That's a new thing. That's something that we haven't really experienced too much before.
this is an excellent segue to, and before I make the segue, I just want to point out also, I think our relationship with the clients is not transactional, it's relational.
Absolutely not. It's
And
so
so, while the
yes.
transaction is important,
Mhm.
focus is not on the transaction, it's on the relationship.
Yeah.
And the outcome of the transaction is basically something that follows in suit, or that is a result of or supportive of the relationship as a
Yeah.
whole.
Yeah, so true. I mean, that's a lot of my clients, when we're done with the transaction, they're, "Oh, we'll touch base afterwards, of course." And they say, "Oh, well, you must be so busy." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, but you're gonna have needs after this deal is done. You're going to need to ask me questions about your home warranty, about, something about how something in your house functions, or, oh, can you please remind me who that inspector was that said this, or do you have a painter or a plumber?" I mean, I think that it's very important. The relationship is everything, because this is a huge responsibility that we take on. I mean, it's not just guiding people through, happy, sad, difficult, prosperous times, and how that translates to real estate and where they're living. I mean, it's a huge decision. It dictates their lifestyle, it dictates their neighborhood, it's their largest investment, but first and foremost, it's where they're living. And so if you are just like, "Okay, deal's done. See you later," "Hey, refer me to your friend," like, why would they? It's I feel it's a responsibility and a pleasure to be a resource.
Hmm.
They
Well,
will
that
call
word is so important. Yes, resource.
Yeah, yeah, they'll
Absolutely.
call me and say, like, "Well, is it time to refinance? Does it make sense?" But it can literally be the most minuscule question, and, I often joke and say, if I'm with Compass, and I love Compass. Such a supportive, it takes care of so many things that help me just spend more time with my clients. Um, but I always joke and say, if I were to open my own place with my own shingle, it would be called "I Got a Guy," because I've got a guy or woman for
You have a
any,
team.
like, you have a team and you have your trusted, I've been through many contractors and handy people that are not so great, and they're not on my list anymore. And then I've got my gems. I'm like, "Oh, this is a good one. I'm gonna, here are my top 3. Call one of them because they're gonna take good care of you." And that's with any need. So the relationship is everything. All of my business. I mean, I'm trying to think if there's probably in the last 10 years, there's been 1 or 2 people that have called me out of the blue. "I saw you online. You look nice," But I would say 99% of my business is referral and repeat clients. And that's because, it's not just a fiduciary responsibility to take care of them. I feel a personal responsibility. And I enjoy people, and I want to smooth out the stress, because it's always gonna be stressful, right? Buying or selling, there's always going to be some degree of stress. There's always
Well,
gonna be a hiccup. There's always gonna be a speed bump, but I want to make it as pleasurable as possible, and know that when they get freaked out, I will very calmly talk them out of the tree, and everything will be okay.
and forgive me if I'm paraphrasing here and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for both of us, you're never too busy to take time to take care of something that a client wants.
Think
And
something that
that is incidental to how you operate, and
Yeah,
that is what supports the relationship. The relationship doesn't end when the transaction ends.
yeah. Well, that's something that you and I have in common, is that we're both high touch communicators.
This is the segue I was talking about, and in the areas that you do business.
Uh-huh.
There was a certain market when we were in COVID, right?
Uh-huh.
And inventory dropped to all-time lows, and we
Mhm.
saw inflation, generally speaking, across the country going upwards north of 9%. In the areas that you do business, in the areas where you sell homes to your sellers, and in the areas where you represent buyers that are buying
Mhm.
homes, what are your thoughts on inventory and prices? What are you seeing as far as both inventory levels and prices as compared with maybe a year ago, maybe 6 months ago, maybe a year and a half
Yeah.
ago, maybe 2 years ago?
Yeah. I mean, it's really, the prices have flattened out, um, softened a little bit. Inventory is lower. It's interesting, like, when you
You're
have
finding in areas you do business that there's actually less inventory now than there might have been then, or okay, that's
I
interesting.
I am finding that to some degree. I think because during COVID with that really, incentivizing, I I don't know if you would call it artificially low, what would you call it? The interest rate was
Yeah,
so low
yeah.
that, to bolster the economy because we were in disaster zone time. I personally had never been busier than it was a shock because we were completely, everything shut down. You can't even go look at a house. You can't have open houses. You can't even go look. Then when it opened up in May of 2020 is when it really started opening up more. I never stopped working. I think it was a year and a half, maybe 2 years solid of, like, I felt like it was round the clock. It was like 8 AM to midnight. It was just like, you know, uh,
Mhm.
which I'm grateful, and I'm glad that it was a good opportunity for people. And yes, inventory might have been tight then, but I mean, there aren't that many, like, for instance, I live in Sunset Park in Santa Monica. My office is in Sunset Park. I work a lot in this neighborhood as well as many others, but it's not, there aren't, I think when I looked up last night, there were 21 listings,
In
across.
Sunset Park.
Yeah. So it's not a ton. It's
So
not
in
a
the
ton.
areas where you're doing business, you haven't seen a substantial increase in inventory.
I have seen a little bit more inventory, but
Yes.
longer days on market,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
price reductions, price adjustments, things selling a little bit under list price. It's just a different animal. It's
And it's so
people are
interesting
cautious.
because talking to other realtors that I've worked with in other areas, it's slightly different, but I know that there's a very special dynamic with some of the pockets that you work in.
Right, right. I mean, it's going to be different, Highland Park, Eagle Rock. I have a lot of clients, some uh, awesome clients that are in the animation industry, and so because the industry, the studios are mostly over there unless they're working at Sony Studios over here in Culver City, that I'm working a lot on the East Side, and which is great because I love those neighborhoods. They're like gems. And the same with Mount Washington, like, uh, it's a great artistic community, and, so I enjoy working everywhere. That's why I
What
feel
what are
so.
what are your thoughts on inventory in those pockets? Would it be similar?
I think it's similar. I mean, I'm seeing the same thing with days on market and prices.
Got
So
it.
that just
Got
tells
it.
me it's like it's moving more slowly than people you have anticipated facing in the past.
Got it.
Yeah. It Prices can be increasing a little bit in certain areas. I mean, the West Side is always very desirable. So even when we had the bubble burst in 2007, 8, right? We were back to fairly high prices quickly after that in West Hollywood, Santa Monica, Venice, Palisades, West LA. Like, it's just there's certain places that are almost resistant to big dips and fluctuations.
Yeah, the fluctuations are much less.
Much less, much lower percentage of fluctuation. So there are more opportunities in other areas to get into a place, work on it yourself, build some equity, so it just really depends. It's a case by case basis. I see some, like, I have a an as is needs some love listing coming up soon, and it's a great opportunity for an end user, for an owner occupant to come in and put some money in and then have, you know, maybe $200,000 of equity
Mm,
instantly
mm.
in the place, maybe more. Investors, developers are always calling, "What do you got off market? What can you get me? Oh, get me a deal on." And they wanna lowball it, and I could do a quick sale that way. I could do a quick sale where I get to represent it again when they sell it, but that's not in the best interest of my seller, who
Yep.
needs who needs
And again, you're focused on
fast.
the relationship and not the transaction.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I could be doing off-market lowball sales all the time, but it's not in the best interest of my client. And it's more important to me to lead with uh, great care and integrity, especially like if I'm dealing with someone who is, you know, an older person facing some health challenges and they're going to be moving into like an assisted living community.
Or
Like
and
they
maybe they don't even really know the neighborhood, so they don't
Right.
even really know what their own property is worth.
Exactly. So it's really, really important when you work with someone to have that trust to yes, there has to be the knowledge base. Yes, they need to be a go-getter. Yes, they need to be, in the know of what is happening and be able to whip out the facts and say, okay, all of these properties that I have represented have sold within, you know, 4% of listing price. All of the properties that I have shown my buyers that have been hemming and hawing and they finally, make a purchase. We look back at all of the things that have sold that they didn't get and they all sold within 5% of the price that I suggested you make. It's like
Yeah.
it's not an I told you so. It's like I got your back. Like I want you to understand that I'm not going to lead you astray just so I can have the business because that that is transactional, that's not relational.
What are your feelings and thoughts on, obviously with interest rates having dipped into the 2s and 3s
Mhm.
during COVID, one of the factors I think, in my opinion, that has almost permanently, until rates get anywhere near there, affected inventory
Mhm.
is, and I come across this, so many people that would ordinarily sell and move, but they don't wanna let go of that rate in the 2s and the rate in the 3s. What are your thoughts on how potential sellers that you might come across would prefer to keep and rent or not sell because of the interest rate that they have? I affectionately refer to them as interest rate prisoners.
Oh, interesting, interesting. Um,
I mean, if you
well,
don't come across it, then fine. I was just curious
oh,
what your
yeah, I
thoughts
don't
are.
know if I don't come across that too much. There are people say I never wanna let go of that interest rate, obviously, but it just depends on what are the motivating factors.
So you
What
don't find that to be a significant factor that might prevent them from selling, at least not in your markets?
I haven't seen that a lot, Dave.
Gotcha.
Are you experiencing that on your end? Are you
Yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah,
they're like right now, even just a few clients that I'm working with other realtors, they
yeah.
have a home and they have the option of either selling that home and then buying another home or
Mhm.
keeping that home, keeping that 2 point something to 3 point
Sure.
something rate,
Yeah.
borrowing against the equity and then buying. And I would say the majority of them are actually wanting to hang on to, like I say affectionately, they're interest rate prisoners.
Right.
Either they won't move or they'll rent out the existing home and buy
Mhm.
another home, but really keep that
Sure.
existing home, which I have to believe is affecting inventory. In other words, if it
For
weren't for these
sure.
quote unquote interest
Yeah.
rate prisoners, there would be more homes on the market.
Well, I
But
think
I
that
was curious
that's
how that is affecting in your markets.
I have a couple people. I have one in Culver City and one in Santa Monica who are grappling with that.
Mm,
But I don't it's less I feel like it's less about interest rate, at least, to my knowledge, and more about wouldn't it be great to have more property? Real
I
estate's
see.
always a good investment.
Sure.
I'll hang
Yeah.
on to it if I can. I
Yep.
had someone in Westwood actually a couple years ago was considering. She was like, "I will sell or lease whatever makes sense. If I'm covering my mortgage and I can keep it." Ultimately, she decided to sell it and buy something else in the a gorgeous Craftsman in the Jefferson Park Historic
Mm, mm.
zone. But it was a real consideration, and it wasn't about the interest hanging on to the interest rate, it was, "Can I handle it? Can my financial picture handle it?" It's always good to hang on to it if you can, was her attitude. So I think that's what I run across more is that, "Oh, it would be great to have a portfolio of properties and have that income stream." Uh, and then there's always the question, do I wanna be a landlord? Do I
That is a very important question because
That's a
there's a lot of
very
people who would love to be property moguls that aren't
Mhm.
really cut out to be landlords.
Right, right. Exactly. And then do
Um,
you hire a management company, which is another expense and really how I have not come across too many management companies that are, A plus. So
What
there's
what,
that.
switching gears for a minute, what questions do you either have or are you getting from your sellers and buyers? What would you say are 1 or 2 of the most
Yeah,
frequent questions that you come across that you would like to mention and then
sure.
share your perspective on the answers with our
Sure,
listeners?
sure. Yeah, I think the most the question that I have frequently is with the of course, what's happening with mortgage rates. And I always I think that you came up with this very effective, slightly cheeky line that I have now adopted using, is that you marry the purchase price, but you date the interest
Right,
rate.
marry the house and date the rate.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
yep, yep, that's
So
right.
I was like that.
I wish
So
I could say I came up with that, but I stole that from someone, but I loved it, so I kept
that's
it.
okay. It's good. It's good. It works. So I think that's something that I really impress upon people, because if they're waiting, for it to go from 5.8 to 5.5, right?
Or 4 or 5.
Or 4.5, right?
I actually
Yeah.
had someone ask me the other day, "So Dave, when do you think we're gonna hit 4 or 5?"
Let me get
I
out my
wasn't sure how
crystal
to answer
ball.
that. Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, but there's your point, marry the house, date the rate.
Exactly. So I think that I always go back, people get hooked onto a line in the sand, right? I'm not going above this price. I have to have this. I've gone on the mortgage calculators online, and I've seen that this is, they're not even they've got a price in their mind, and sometimes they're not looking at what they're living with monthly. And so it's, I never push, but I always guide and say, okay, you really want this house? Here's the interest rate now. If it moves this much, then you can refinance after 6 months and save hundreds of dollars a month. And conversely, if they're like, oh no, this price is too high, I am only going to go to 1.2 million. And then I explain to them that if they go to 1.235 to actually get the house, what that is each month is you're giving up one pizza per month.
Right. Well, and the other thing to that point is unless you're paying cash for the house, the sales price of the house is relatively less important. What it breaks down to is much more
Yes,
important, right? Cash to
absolutely.
close and monthly payment. So
That's
if
the
you're okay
whole
with the
deal.
cash to close and you're okay with the monthly payment, then by definition, you're okay
Right.
with the sales price.
Yeah, yeah. So when someone comes to me and says, "Here's the price that I wanna pay," I'm like, "Okay, well, what kind of down payment do you have? What do you want your monthly to look like? Because that's what you're living with." So that's a big thing. With sellers and buyers to some degree, but with sellers, a big question has come from a big area of misunderstanding is with when the recent, NAR lawsuit and settlement around seller commissions.
Oh, realtor
This
commission. Yeah, yeah.
this has been, yeah, the broker commissions for the selling side
Sure, sure.
and for the buyer side. So and I break it down as quickly as I can because I don't wanna overload people with, I don't wanna flood them with a bunch of information, because you can see the moment when their eyes glaze glaze over and they're like, "Too much." But, there's a real misconception that, "Oh, well, now I'm a seller and I don't need to pay the buyer's side commission. Why would I?"
Correct,
It's
correct.
not, when really, the misconception that people don't realize is that commissions have always been negotiable,
Mhm,
always.
mhm.
And what happened was, to my understanding, there were 5 Shady O'Grady realtors in Missouri that told their sellers that they had to charge them a certain amount of commission, that it was mandated. And that it was, if correct me if I'm wrong, this is my understanding of this case is where it started.
You're talking about the NAR case that ended up with where we ended up. Okay.
Exactly.
I don't know.
So that's my understanding, and what happened was those sellers, these 5 sellers went, "Hey, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right," and it's true, it was not right, but it's always been negotiable. It's always been, there is an industry standard that happens where it's like our keep the lights on fee, but the conversation is not, "This is how much I charge," this is not how much I must charge for commission. The conversation should have always been, here is my fee. This is my fee for my work. And here is why it is advantageous for you, Mr. and Ms. and, for the seller to offer a buyer commission. And this also relates back to what you do, Dave, with lending, is that if a seller does not offer any commission to the buyer broker, it is the buyer's responsibility to pay their person. That comes out of their cash to close. That comes out of their
Yeah,
down
that
payment.
adds arguably 1.5 to 2.5%, which is
Yes.
gonna knock a lot of buyers out of the park.
Typically, it's 2.5%. That's sort of like a keep the lights on,
Well, and
fee.
my approach to this whole thing with the commission piece is just think of the buyer's realtor's commission as another buyer closing cost. So just like you might say, well, I would buy this house for $1 million, but can I buy it for $1,020,000 and have the seller give me $20,000 for closing costs?
Right, right.
How about you buy it for $1,020,000 plus whatever the buyer's commission, agent's commission is, and put that price. It's just all you're doing is financing your closing costs. Because
Well,
here's the
that's
surprise.
the problem.
Here's the nugget. Whether
Yeah,
you pay it out of pocket or
yeah,
you put it into the price of the house, you're
exactly.
still paying it.
Which is effectively what has always been the case, but
Correct.
that's just been the case. It's wrapped into the purchase price. And therefore, if it's wrapped into the purchase price, it makes sense for the seller to offer that commission. It de-incentivizes your buyer because unless they are an all cash buyer, where is that money coming from? It cannot, no lender is going to say, I'm going to finance the commission for you. So the sellers need to be aware that it is in their best interest to
Correct.
say, I'm offering a commission, a co-broker commission to the other side. And then
Well,
that
and,
is,
sorry. So go ahead.
yeah. No, and that's, really the overall effect of that lawsuit is that we have to explain much more as a buyer's representative
Hmm.
and as a seller's representative how it works and how this is really all logistics and semantics because it's really in everyone's best interest that we do it that way. And it's just it's been unfortunate that
It came
it
up.
has brought up a lot of suspicion
Hmm.
on our industry. And
Hmm.
yes, there are those realtors that are like used car salespeople. That's unfortunately true. That's in any industry, I think.
Sure.
But
Sure.
but I think that's why it's important to have someone experienced that is focused on taking care of you, on the relationship that you have, and that it's a continual, evolving process.
Well, and just for perspective, since this law came out, I've done a lot of purchases. I'm fortunate enough to have a lot of people that send us business. And I have not had one transaction yet where the buyer has paid the entire buyer's realtor commission.
Right.
I did have one transaction, only one, since the law came out, where
Mhm.
the buyer, there was I think it was a 2% buyer commission or something like that. One and a half of that was paid by the seller,
Mhm.
and the buyer paid 0.5% of that piece. I have
Mhm.
not yet had one transaction where a buyer out of their pocket has paid the entire
No.
buyer's agent commission.
No,
So it
no.
just almost seems like a whole big to-do about nothing.
Agreed,
Not to
agreed.
downplay it, but
No, it's true, and
it
the and then
hasn't
it's
changed much.
I agree, Dave, because the effect has been, not only a lot more explanation required and a lot more paperwork. It's there's a wonderful architectural quote that says form follows function. Well, in real estate, form follows form, follows form, follows form. We
Mhm.
fill out forms.
Mhm.
And every time there's any sort of litigation, there's another form that follows. So that's okay. It's explanatory, it's necessary, it covers everyone's best interest in the end. But it is the effect of that, aside from a lot of explanation, is that the on the MLS, you cannot state what the commission is to the buyer's agent. And
Ah,
so
okay.
really, except for the state of Washington. The state of Washington didn't have that practice before, and so they were omitted from this entire lawsuit. It's very
But in
interesting.
California, you can't do that.
No, in California, you cannot, And but in the rest of the country, you cannot. They never did it in Washington, so they were not subject to the lawsuit. Is
Mhm.
my point. But all that means now is it's private information shared between agents that gets relayed privately to their client. So,
Good feedback and a really good topic to talk about, which impacts all of us in this
mhm,
industry.
yeah, it
What
really does.
closing thoughts do you have for us as far as something that you would like to share with either people that have worked with you before or people that have not and should work with you in the future? What closing thoughts do you have on, again, to summarize, who you are, what you do, where you do it, how you do it, and maybe a little nugget about some of the markets that you do?
Sure, sure. Um, okay, let me think about that wrap up.
Sorry,
So,
didn't mean to catch you off
no,
guard
it's
there.
okay. You didn't catch me off guard at all. I'm just making the list in my brain.
There's so many different things, and
There's
you just
so
got to
many
pick
different
one.
things. I think that um the important thing is that I really believe that yes, like I said before, there will be stressors that come up. It's important that anyone that wants to work with me, that if I have the pleasure to work with you, you know that I take the work very seriously. I take the responsibility of protecting you, your interest, and your money the most seriously. It is my job to carefully watch this process much more than I would for myself. So I am watching your dollars much more carefully because it's a huge responsibility that I take very seriously. I take the job seriously, but I don't take myself seriously. I don't. I I don't appreciate when I work with other realtors that lead with ego. I think
Mhm.
there's just no place for it. I don't think there's place for it in life in general.
Well, I was just about to say, I think that statement carries into much more than just what you and I do.
Right. Yeah, I think it's an
Well,
important thing, and I think that it's, it's an intensive period of time. It's like, you're not married to your realtor, you're not married to your lender, but you're gonna be communicating a lot for a short window of time. And so you have to be comfortable and confident with that person, um, and communicate well. The other thing that I run into quite a bit is getting families, couples on the same page.
yep, yep,
Sometimes
oh
you are
yeah,
a little bit
yeah.
of a de facto therapist,
Mhm.
but
And
it
there's
is
sometimes where you kind of just want to leave the room for a second,
well. Do you
meaning to
experience
give
that
them
too?
the privacy to sort of
For
figure each
sure,
other out. Yep.
absolutely. I mean, it's a very intimate it's a capsule relationship, right? It's
Hmm.
for this purpose, but it is intimate. I have a interior designer, very good friend of mine. She's fabulous, and she says the funniest thing, and I think it applies to the financial piece that you work with and all that I do as well, is like she says, "Jenna, I'm in their underwear drawers."
Yeah, this is true. This is
Because you
absolutely
you
true.
you know so much about them, about are there purse strings from parents who are helping with down payment and help and weighing in on the decision? Are there does the husband want a super traditional and the wife wants a super modern? And how do you bridge that gap and how do you get them on the same page? How do you find
And
a
then
happy
that's a difficult line for you to walk because I've seen it where one is more focused on the house and what they want physically, and the
Mhm.
other is somewhat more focused on the bottom line.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
sometimes there has to be a meeting of the minds of those 2,
Yes.
and I don't envy the position that you're navigating, where you're trying to make both happy, you know?
Yeah, and it requires finesse and it requires a lot of listening and a lot of feedback of asking questions what rather than telling them what to do. I'm
Yep,
asking a lot of
guidance.
questions. I'm
Yeah,
guiding them so that they can find the happy medium and, have a peaceable outcome because the last thing that I want someone to do is to regret their purchase. The last thing that I want is for them to feel like they've gotten in over their heads. They can't afford what they got.
mhm.
They're cursing my name on their 1.5 hour commute to work. Like, I have clients that were working in one area of town, really wanted to live in another area of town. And I said, here's what I ask of you. Get up at the crack of eggs in the morning, go to that house and test out your commute,
Yep.
because I don't want you cursing my name when you're spending 3 hours a day in the car.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yep.
really, it's all of those things. So good questions, good listening, good guidance, and then hopefully they're feeling good and happy and peaceful at the end of the process.
Well, one of my personal observed testaments to the relationship you build rather than focusing on the transaction is there are many clients that we've worked with where you've represented them not on one, not on two, not on three, but multiple properties, multiple
Mhm.
purchases. And that
Right.
in itself is a testament to your focus on the relationship. So I commend you for that. And I'm very
Thanks.
grateful to be part of your team. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us or any other closing thoughts?
I don't think so. I
I know
mean, we
you've covered a lot. You've covered a lot, and I think our listeners and our viewers have a much better perspective at this time of who Jenna Macari is, what she does, where she does it, and how she does it. I'm personally here to tell you, after having worked with her for many, many years, she really cares about her clients. It is both my pleasure and my privilege to work with her as a business partner, and for us to team up and work as a team to support the clients that we serve. On that
absolutely.
note, Jenna, thank you so much for joining us today, and
Well, thanks for having me, Dave.
you're welcome. It's a pleasure. This was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. And to all of you out there, if you would like to get in touch with us, you know where to find us. Reach out. I can connect you with Jenna. It's Jenna Macari with Compass, and I'm Dave deSousa, aka Banker D. Thank you
Banker
so much for
D.
joining us, and
It's
we
your
will
rap
connect.
name. You gonna throw out a rap album soon?
I'm thinking about it. I'm working on it. So maybe for the next video.
Why
But
not?
thank you all. We'll keep in touch and keep an eye on those weekly rate updates. Thank you. Have a good
Thanks,
one.
Dave. Pleasure.
Let's get into the market with Banker D.
The government shutdown has affected the flow of data from the government to the general public, which has affected Wall Street and which has affected the Federal Reserve in their decision about making any changes with interest rates. If you will, they're sort of flying blind at the moment because there's really no access to data, and data is what drives all their decisions. It's no surprise that our par rate is pretty much flat from the prior week at 5.875 on a standard conforming 30-year fixed at par. Even Wall Street, while it went up and then came back down, both the Dow, the Nasdaq, and the S&P all rounded out the week pretty much flat. So your interest rate on your mortgage stayed flat. Your retirement portfolio and any investments you have pretty much had a net zero to maybe a slight loss of a week. We're hopeful that there will be more data coming up this week. With the government being back open. But again, it takes a little while for this data to come back. The big ticket item here is what is the Federal Reserve going to do at their meeting in December? Are they going to leave rates or are they going to cut rates? And right now, the probability of a cut has dropped from about 90 to 95%. It's dropped to about maybe 50 to 60%. So the market is not as comfortable with a cut as it was maybe at the last meeting. That said, that is my recap.
Home loans for your home on goals with Banker D and PRMI.